Hi everyone! In this video, we'll see the latest version of YITH WooCommerce multi-vendor marketplace. With this plugin, you can create your own marketplace and have users apply to become vendors to sell their products in your shop. We're going to see the redesigned dashboard and all the options you need to configure to get your marketplace running, including the new module that allows you to charge a fee to users who want to become vendors. Before we get into it, let me remind you that we'll list the links to the plugin, documentation, and live demo with access to the admin dashboard below in the description or in the first comment. And now, let's get to it. With this plugin, you can create a marketplace like this, where your vendors can sell their own products. You can see we have products from different vendors on the shop page, and if we click on the vendor store name either here or here, we get redirected to this vendor store where we can see the store information and all the products this vendor is selling, together with a form so customers can get in touch with each vendor and the location of the store in a map. So first, let's go to the dashboard to see how you can configure the plugin to achieve this. Let's go to YITH, multi-vendor. So this is the admin dashboard and we have all these tabs and the option to collapse the menu. In dashboard, we'll find the main information about all the vendor sales. We have commissions, total commissions, pending commissions, paid commissions, refunded commissions, total net earnings, and orders. This is the information of all the vendors together and from month to date, but we can change the date range we want to see and also change the view from all vendors to a specific vendor, like this. There we go. We only see this vendor's information. And we can even compare several vendors by entering the store names here. And then we can click on compare. There we go. We can now compare the information between these two vendors. And we can also change this view from day to week and choose a line chart or a bar chart. And below we have the top products that are being sold with the total commissions and earnings generated. And the top vendors here, also with their total commissions and earnings generated. Then we have the Commissions tab, which has these three sub-tabs: Commissions, Gateways, and Commission Settings. In Commissions, we'll find the sales and commissions generated in the shop. We have each commission ID, the date when they were generated, the order and the product each commission was generated for, the commission rate, the amount, the vendor info, and the status. Some are currently unpaid, others are pending, and these ones are paid. We can click here or on the commission ID to see the commission details. We'll get this model window with the product's actual price, the commission rate, and the amount. We also have commission notes, and we can change the status to paid, unpaid, pending, cancelled, or processing. In case I pay commissions manually, for example by transferring the payment from my bank account to the vendor's bank account, I just have to do that on my own and then mark the commission as paid here. Or I can go back to the table and change the status here to paid, pending, cancelled, or processing, and even delete the commission if I needed to. We also have bulk actions here to export several commissions into a CSV file, delete them, or change the status. We can also search for specific product or vendor commissions here, export all of the commissions generated by clicking here, and search for commissions here. Also, if I click on Order ID, I can get redirected to the order details page, and if I click on the product name, I get redirected to the product edit page. All of this as an admin. Now in Gateways, we can manage the supported gateways to pay vendors commissions automatically. The supported gateways are YITH Stripe Connect, YITH PayPal Payouts, and YITH Account Funds. If, for example, I had YITH Stripe Connect installed and activated on the site, I would be able to enable it here and then configure the commission settings to make sure vendors get paid automatically through this gateway. But since I don't have any of this, I'll need to pay commissions manually. In commission settings, we can configure the general options regarding the vendor's commissions. So first, we have the default commission. This is the percentage vendors will get out of each sale. So for example, in this case, it's 90%, meaning if a customer buys a product from one of the vendors, as admin, I'll get 10% of that sale, and the vendor commission should be generated for 90% of the sale. We can override this for each vendor. We'll see how to in a bit. Then we can decide what the default view of the commissions should be. Like we saw before, it's all commissions right now, but we can change that to any other status, and we would still be able to change between these statuses in the commissions table. We can decide how to calculate vendors' commissions if a coupon is used. We can do it based on the original product price or based on the discounted price. Then we have the option to decide how to handle taxes. We can credit them to the admin or the vendor, or we can split taxes between them. Let me share an example. Let's say a vendor has published a t-shirt for sale that is $10 and taxes are $2, so the total is $12. And that vendor's commission rate is 50%. So if I select admin, the vendor will get 50% of the product price, so $5. The remaining 50% and the tax fee will go to me as the admin, so I'll get $7. And the vendor will get $5. If I select vendor, the vendor will get the 50% commission out of the product price plus the $2 tax fee. So he would be getting a total of $7 and I, as an admin, will be getting $5, no taxes. And if I select split taxes between the admin and the vendor will get the percentage commission plus half of the taxes. So vendor and admin are each supposed to get $6 total, specifically because in this case, the vendor commission rate is 50%. And here we have the option to pay commissions to vendors automatically when the order status changes. This will of course only work if I'm using one of the supported gateways we saw before. We can enable the option and decide what status orders should have to pay commissions automatically. We can choose completed, processing, or both. And here's where we would need to choose the supported gateway we want to use to pay commissions automatically. But since I don't have any of those active, I'll have to pay commissions manually. Then we have the Vendors tab with 3 subtabs: Vendors List, Vendors Registration, and Vendors Permissions. In Vendors List, we'll find the complete list of the vendors registered on the site. We have each vendor's name, the owner account, when they registered, if they accepted the site's policy and terms and conditions, and if they entered their VAT number, what the commission percentage is, how many products they have for sale, and what's their profile status. This can be enabled, disabled, rejected, pending, or pending fee. Here we have the options to edit each vendor, view the vendor store page, and delete each vendor. Let's click on View Vendor. We get redirected to the vendor page we saw before. Now let's go back. Before moving on, let me remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell down below so you know every time we publish a new video. Now, let's continue. And if I click on Edit Vendor, I get this modal window to edit the vendor information. We have the account info with the user account, the store info with details like store name, address, and contact details. Here we can edit the social media accounts, their payment info to get paid the commissions, and additional options where we can decide if this vendor will get the default commission rate or a custom commission percentage like this. In this case, it's 85%. Here we can set the status to enabled, disabled, rejected, or pending. Let's close this. Here we can filter vendors by status, and here we can delete several vendors at once. So users can apply to become vendors, and I can either approve each one manually or approve them all automatically depending on how I configure the plugin. Or I can add vendors manually here by clicking on Add Vendor, and I'll get another modal window with 5 steps to complete all the information we saw before. We can either select an existing user on the site to add as a vendor or create a new user. Let's add one by filling in these fields. Let's click on Next. In step number 2, we can upload a vendor profile and header image. If we don't, we can allow vendors to upload their own images. We have store name, Slack, address fields, VAT number, email address, and website. And we can also add a store description here. If I try to move on to the following step without adding the required information, I can't. I need to fill in those fields so I can move on. Let's complete this, and now let's click on Next. Here's where I can add the vendor's social media accounts. Let's move on, and then we can add the vendor's payment information if we happen to know it. If we don't, we can let the vendor add it later on. And then we can decide to use the default percentage commission for this vendor or set a different percentage. Let's use 70% in this case since it's a brand new vendor. We can set the status. Let's keep pending as the status for now. We can allow this vendor to skip the admin's revision. This means that they will be able to create and publish products directly instead of creating the products and having them pending until I check them and approve them to be published. Let's disable this option, and we can also decide if each vendor is allowed to set featured products or not. Let's save. Great, so the vendor has been created. We have it right here since the vendors are in alphabetical order. We have the user account here. We can edit it. We see none of this has been accepted or entered yet. And here we can easily approve or reject the vendor. Then in vendors registration, we can configure the options for users to register as vendors. The first thing we need to do is select a page where they can register. The default one is this one, Become a Vendor, but you can add any page from your website to use as the registration page. For example, let's enter the home page here, there. Let's choose Become a Vendor again. If you decide to use a different page than this one, you need to make sure you insert this shortcode on the page here in Pages. Then below we have the fields that are shown in the registration form. For example, we have the vendor name, which is a text field, the PayPal email, which is an email field. These are the names for us to identify the field. We have the types, the labels users will see on the front end, what each field is connected to in case we want to connect the fields here to one of the default fields visible in the vendor's profile page. Here we can see if there are required fields. We can disable and enable each field, edit them, and move them around like this if we want to change the order in the registration form. And we can click on Add Field to add a new field. Let's add a field to ask users who want to become vendors if they create the products they sell or not. So let's add a name for us to identify the field here. Here we have all the different types of field we can choose, like state, multi-select, select, phone. Let's choose select. Let's enter the label that users will see on the front end. Do you create, build, produce the products you sell? We can enter the class and the placeholder if we want to. We can connect this info to one of the default fields like store city, postcode, country, company legal notes, and more. We can set the labels and values that users will see as options in the drop-down list. Here we can choose the position. We have first, last, and wide. We're going to make it wide, but I'll show you these two on the front end in a bit. And last, we can make this required. Let's save. We have the new field here. Let's save again. And now let's go to the site to see the registration form. So this is the Become a Vendor page, and here's the registration form. We have all the fields we saw before, and here's the new field we just created. It's required, and I can see the two options in the drop-down, yes and no. Here we have two checkboxes to accept the terms and conditions and the privacy policy. So the position of the field we just created is wide. It occupies the whole line. This telephone field's position is first. It occupies the first half of this line. And this one's position is last. It occupies the last half of the line. So users have to fill out this form and then click on Become a Vendor to submit their application. Let's go back. Then we can decide if we also want to allow vendor registration on my account, together with the usual user registration process. Here's where we can decide if all vendors will be approved automatically or not. The option's disabled right now, so it means vendors won't be approved automatically. I have to do that manually in the vendors list we saw before. And here we can enable the options to add the terms and conditions and the privacy policy checkboxes to the registration form like we saw a moment ago. Then in vendor permissions, we can control many of the options related to what vendors can do from their own dashboards. For example, we can allow them to sell simple, grouped, variable, and external products, and we have a few options grayed out that require the use of an additional premium plugin to be unlocked. Here you can allow vendors to sell bookable products if you also own the YITH Booking and Appointment license. You can also allow them to sell bundles if you own the YITH Product Bundles license, and even subscription-based products if you own the YITH subscription license, and more. Then we can enable the advanced editor for their store's descriptions. We'll see that later on. And we can also enable the media button there. We can enable this option in case we want to limit the products every vendor can publish. You can just enter the number here. Let's disable this option so they can publish an unlimited number of products. Then we can decide what happens when vendors create products. We can let them publish products directly or make them go through my revision. So their products will be pending until I approve them to be published. We can also force the option to skip the admin's review for all the vendors. And similar to the previous option, here we can decide what happens when vendors edit products, if they can edit and update them directly, or if they have to go through my revision first. Then here we can enable or disable certain permissions like the ability to create coupons to be used on their products, to edit the store's log, assign tags to products, set products as featured, import and export products, manage reviews. And here we have again several permissions that are only unlocked with additional premium plugins, like the option to create custom coupons and emails, the option to manage discounts for reviews, the option to create custom price rules for their products based on user roles, and more. And then regarding their own orders, we can decide if they can manage the orders and refunds, if they can send emails to their customers, if they can edit custom fields, see the customer info, see the customer payment, billing, and shipping info in the order details, and additional options like, for example, receive and manage their own quote request if you own the YITH Request a Quote premium plugin. Keep in mind all the options that are grayed out always require the premium version of the plugins to work. And last, we have the option to synchronize all of the changes made to parent orders with the vendor's individual orders, and the option to update the parent order status when editing the sub-order status. Let's save, and now let's move on to store and product pages. Here we can edit many of the options for the vendor's pages. We have 3 tabs here: General, Product Page, and Store Page. Let's start with the general options. We can decide what the vendor's store slug is going to be in the URL. We can also choose if we want to name them vendors or something different. We can enable this option to hide the products of vendor stores that are in vacation mode. We can also enable these options to show the vendor's name below their products on the shop and taxonomy pages. We can set the color for the vendor name there and decide if we want to hide the vendor's products from the loop. That way their products would only be visible on their individual store pages. Let's save for now, and let's move on to the following tab, Product Page. Here we can configure the vendor's product pages. We can choose to show the vendor's name on product pages as well, the number of items sold. We can also choose to show the vendor's tab with the WooCommerce tab, and if this is enabled, we can choose the tab's position. We can make it the first tab or the last one after the WooCommerce tabs. Let me show you. Let's go see this vendor product and let's scroll down. So here's the vendor tab first. It's labeled vendor, and next are the WooCommerce tabs. Let's go back. Here's where we can enter the tab's label, and here we can decide if we want to hide related products on vendors' product pages, show related products from the same vendor, or show related products from the whole shop. Let's save, and let's go over to Store Page. Here we can configure the vendor store pages. We can choose from 3 different styles. Right now we have style number 3 with the header image first and the description and vendor info below in 2 columns. Back, we can choose the header size and the colors here. I can then decide if I want to show a default header image set by me as the admin in all stores, so vendors cannot upload their own custom header image. I can choose to show it only in the stores that do not have a custom header image, or to never use a default header image at all. And here I can upload the image, edit it, or delete it. Then below we have similar options for the logo. I can upload a default logo for all the stores, only for those that do not have a logo or not have a default logo at all. Since I chose the option not to have a default logo, I don't have the option to upload one here. I can only set the logo size in pixels. And then I can choose what vendor info to show. We have description, bot number, location, phone, store email, total sales, website, reviews, average rating, social links, and store legal notes. And we can enter the VAT label and the product list title here. Right now it's our products. Let's see that. Let's go to the vendor store page. Here's the header image, the vendor info, the store description, and the vendor products with the title Our Products. Back, and last we have a store widgets section where we can enter a Google Map API key and then enable the option to show a link to Google Maps below the store location widget. Let's go see that. So here's the widget where we can show customers where the vendor physical store is. They can click here on showing Google Maps to be redirected to Google Maps, see the location, and even get directions to visit the store. Back to the dashboard. Now let's go to other. Here we have additional options for the marketplace. We can decide what the vendor's terms and conditions and privacy policy pages will be. We can select a page or create a new one. We can enable this option to ask vendors to read and accept the terms and conditions or the privacy policy whenever they're updated. And in the GDPR section, we can decide how to handle an account erasure request and whether to export commissions in an account personal data export request or not. Then in modules, we can enable any of these modules to add extra features to the marketplace. These are all included in the premium license. We can enable the vendor's vacations module to allow vendors to close their shops for vacation. We can enable the vendor shipping module to allow vendors to set their own shipping costs. We can enable the vendor's announcements module so we can create announcements from the admin dashboard to show on the vendor's dashboard. Enabling this module will add a new tab here. We can enable the vendor's abuse report module to allow customers to see a report abuse link on all product pages. Enabling this will add a new tab here. We can enable the vendor staff module to allow vendors to add staff members to their stores. And we can enable the vendor registration fee module to charge users a fee in order to complete the registration process to become vendors. This will also add a new tab here. Let's quickly see these new tabs. In announcements, we can create dynamic notifications to show on vendors' dashboards. We don't have any created yet, but let's go ahead and create one. Let's do a quick welcome announcement. So we're going to enter a text to identify the announcement. Then let's set the message here. We can make some changes if we want to. And here's where we can decide who we want to show this to all vendors that match specific criteria that we're going to find here. Like for example, being reported by users or vendors that are new to the site, or to specific vendors. So we can enter the name of any vendor here to show this announcement only to that vendor. Let's keep all vendors selected here, and here we can schedule it. We can either publish it now and remove it manually, or set the start and end date and time. If I click here, I get to choose the date first, and we can add the time as well, but let's just publish it now and remove it later manually. And we can also allow vendors to dismiss the notice. In this case, since it's just a welcome notice, we're going to enable this, but if it's important, you might want to keep this disabled. Let's save. Okay, great, there we go. We have the title, the date, who it is shown to. We see here it's enabled. We can edit it, duplicate it, and delete it here. We can search announcements and delete several announcements at once here. We're going to see this in a few minutes, but now let's go over to a views report. So here in reports, we're going to find all the reports that customers send. We're going to see the product they reported, the vendor that owns the product, who it was reported by, and the date. And we can click on view to see the report. For example, here we have the message, which is to let us know that the chair that the vendor is selling is the different color. We can click here on reply to send an email to this user. We can delete it, search for specific reports, move several to trash, and then in settings, we can decide if we want to show the report abuse link on all products, only on vendors' products, or maybe even disable the option. In this case, it's in all products. We can choose what the link label will be. Right now it's report abuse, and what the color will be. So this is what they see below the add to cart button. They can click here to report abuse. Let's go back, and then in registration fee, we can configure the fee options. We can decide what the fee title is going to be. This is what users will see in the checkout process and in the order details. Then the registration fee, then the fee price. Right now it's $100. We can decide if the fee is taxable or not, and we can decide the tax class here if it's taxable. If it's not, we're not going to see that option. So as you know by now, when a user applies to become a vendor, they can either get automatically approved or manually approved by the admin. If the configuration is to approve them automatically, as soon as they complete the registration form, they'll be directed to the checkout page to pay for the fee. Now, if we configure the plugin to approve them manually, once the vendor application is approved, we'll see the vendor status as pending fee, and an email will be sent to the vendor with a link to pay for the fee. We're going to save, and let's go to emails. So here we can manage all the email notifications that are sent by this plugin. We have both the emails that are sent to the admin and the emails that are sent to customers. For example, in this case, we have the commissions unpaid email that is sent to the admin whenever there are new commissions credited to a vendor, but the payment failed or is still pending. And here we have an email that is sent to vendors when their commissions have been credited successfully. We have all the emails here. We can click here to edit each email. In this case, for example, it's the email that is sent to vendors when the admin approves their accounts. We have the subject, the email heading, the email type, and we can of course disable each email here. Then in your store tools, we have additional tools to improve user experience, increase conversions, and loyalize customers. We're going to find these premium plugins, like for example, subscriptions, so you can allow vendors to also sell subscription-based products or services. Request a quote, so you can also allow them to offer quotes for their products, and more. And then in help, we're going to find a video tutorial to learn how to use the plugin, a link to the documentation so you can learn how the plugin works, a link to our playlist so you can see all the videos we recorded for this plugin, a link to the frequently asked questions to find answers to your doubts, and a link to submit a ticket in case you need help from our developers. Okay, so now that we have seen all these options, let's go ahead and switch to the vendor dashboard to see how it looks. Okay, so the first thing we have here is the announcement we created. Hi vendor, welcome to my marketplace. You can add any announcement for your vendors to see here. They can dismiss it here. Then they're going to find a dashboard where they can see their commissions, total commissions, pending commissions, paid commissions, and refunded commissions. They can change the date range here as well. They are seeing a comparison from month to date to the previous year. We can check this if we don't want to see that. We can choose the line or the bar chart. Note our products here so far. They also have a commission section where they can see their commissions, but there are no commissions recorded yet. They also have store settings where they can upload a logo, a header image, and edit the store info, including the description. Then they can add their payment information here. In vacation, they can enable vacation mode. In shipping, they can configure shipping options. They just have to enable shipping. They'll find options to enter the default shipping cost. They can choose the processing time here and where they're shipping from. They can also add shipping zones here. They can set extra costs here by enabling the option. For example, if the cart contains more than one item, they can add a cost of, let's say, $10 for each additional product. And if the cart contains more than one product of the same type, they can add an extra cost of $5 for each additional product and then just save here. And then in policies, they can add their shipping and shipping refund policy here. And they can see their orders here, create coupons here, and see products and add new products here. They can add all the necessary information here. And then since products need to be reviewed by me, they can just click here to submit for revision. And the product will be pending until I approve it. And that's it. That's how you can configure the plugin to create your own marketplace and allow users to apply to become vendors and sell products in your shop. Okay, so that's how the plugin works. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up and we'll meet again for our next video.